because a software vendor, again, they are trying to implement this and move on to the next. That is their business model. There's nothing against them, but you need to make sure that you lay out what you want in the contract so that you're not sitting here 3 months in and you have a system that doesn't work for you or for your employees. So I think that's a good one, Billy. Defining what is go live. What does that mean?
Mm. Not just go live, but all definitions, like
I,
making sure you have clear understanding because they could be using a word that you think it means one thing. So
mhm.
if it could possibly mean something else, clarifying, like, what do you guys mean by this? Because each company uses words differently because we have our own languages. And
Mm.
so identifying all of that so you have that clear understanding before you sign the contract, like making sure you truly know what you're signing up for.
And let's talk about payment terms. So, in the example that we keep using, this is something that you've been working with this particular client on for the last several months. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how do you come to the table, and how do we help our clients understand payment terms? I'm thinking, should software vendors be on a milestone based payment plan, right?
It really depends.
Yeah.
So the nice thing that we've seen in this situation is that the vendor's willing to work with the client on
Yep.
what do they need? Like, what are their expectations? What do they need? Does it change the end total? No, it doesn't. But it can stagger it. And so having those conversations with, hey, we're not ready to just drop this all out right away. Like at the beginning, can we do a little bit here? And then at each phase have different portions that you pay. So very similar to milestone, in that because it is a lot of money and you have to know like how is your government set up to pay things? Like what does
Mm.
that look like for you guys? And
Right.
then also knowing how you're going to make a payment because they could in your contract it could say you have to pay by credit card or ACH, and you don't have that. You
Mhm.
have paper checks that you have to put in the mail and send because that's why you're getting a new ERP system. So being mindful of that, identifying that, and having those conversations, even if they seem tough or silly, just doing it anyways, like and feeling empowered to do it. So you clearly have an understanding of what you're signing up for.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm thinking milestone just to make sure that the thing gets implemented correctly, right?
Yeah.
They actually have to sign off on the functionality that was implemented and say that, hey,
Hmm.
this piece actually,
This is finished.
works
Yeah.
now, like it's finished, so I can accept payment. And I do think it depends. It depends on organization, right? Let's talk about a little bit about system implementers. You have your big players, but you also have SIs, right? And that can get confusing
Hmm.
for our clients. So let's
Yeah.
dive into that a little bit. In the current client that you're working with, is there a system integrator or implementer
There is.
that
Yes.
you're doing a separate contract for them, or how does that
Mhm. So that is a separate contract, and
work?
then they are responsible for bringing to the table the contracts from the implementers. So we have three different implementers that are underneath this contract. So you have the overarching contract. I like to refer to it as the umbrella, and then
Mhm.
you have your people or your different ones underneath that. And so you have to go through all of those. And so being mindful of the time that's going to take, that's not going to take 30 days. That's going to take longer than 30 days to go through everything and make sure you're doing it right. And so being mindful of that time track, thinking, okay, we got these contracts in June, we'll be done and ready in July. Probably not. Probably not because you need time to go through all of them and treat them all as a separate contract and fully understand the terminology in the contract. What are you getting? Are they providing for you what they said they could provide for you? Is that in the contract? And you have to go through each one separately as well as your big overarching umbrella one too. So it gets a lot. It gets confusing and a lot, but
Sure. And what role does procurement play in all this? And how do we ensure that they remain involved so that they keep us out of trouble, right? And they make sure that the right terminology is in that contract.
yeah, they are right in the mix of everything. So a good system would be you have your sponsor reviews, you have procurement reviews, and you also have a legal team that reviews. But then you need to have everyone that it's going to impact at the high level. Like, so if it's impacting human resources department. You need to have your VP from HR. You need to have your high levels in there reviewing, because they're the experts in their field and know what their needs were, understand it. They have feedback and pushback on deadlines that they may have come up, or they may get a schedule of this is what implementation is going to look like, but you have a month where you can't do anything because you have open enrollment, you have end of year. Like there's different deadlines that they are aware of
Mhm.
intimately, where other departments or other people may not know. Procurement may not even be fully well aware of it. So it has to be a team effort. It can't just be procurement's responsible for all this and that's on them. And good luck, guys. Hope you know everything. It really has to be a team. And that's what Avero can come in and help you build that team and understand these are the people we need to have look at this.
Mhm.
This is why, and give the value of their input to the process.
Right. What would you say was one of the biggest hurdles that you had to overcome during the contract negotiation process with your current client?
Was letting the client know the sales process, and that it was okay to stick to their rules and regulations of how they go through a contract, and that no matter what the pushback they were getting, they had to do right by their processes. And so that doesn't mean because you're being pushed to get something done quicker that you shortcut your process. You have to stick with your process because it's there for a reason.
Right.
Your town, your city, your county created that for a reason for you to have. And so being truthful to what your process is and making sure you're going through everything and not caving to the pressure or getting upset and walking away because you don't like to be pressured, because that it can go both ways on that.
Yeah. Oh, hi, Irene. She has a good question. I'm going to take her question. Should post go live support be addressed during the initial contract negotiation, or is it normally handled in a separate negotiation?
I would say in your initial contract negotiation, you have to know what you're signing.
Mm-hmm.
And once you sign that paper, you lose your negotiating power. You don't have the ability to negotiate what you need anymore because you signed.
Mm-hmm.
So what you sign for is what you get. So really negotiating every little thing out that you truly want, and make sure you're okay with the concessions that you give, that
Mm-hmm.
they're okay for you, because both sides are going to have to give concessions. That's part of negotiation. Um, but then the one thing I will say you have to be aware of is when in doubt, it's okay to step back and talk to your third party advisor and say, is this the correct place, or do we go back to the drawing table on this? Um, because sometimes you may have gotten oversold something and then you're in the contract and you're going through it and it's not what you needed. And
Mm-hmm.
they come back and they can't provide that. So what do? You can't sign that. So you sometimes have to be okay going back to the start. Um, and do we want that to happen? Absolutely not. But we also want our clients to feel empowered that if that is the case, they can do that and it's okay. Like, do not sign a contract that you are not fully comfortable with, is the
Yeah.
biggest thing.
Absolutely. And I would say yes to that, Irene. I think post go live support, whatever that may mean, again, to your broader organization needs to be detailed out in your contract with your vendor. I mean, different vendors provide different layers of post go
Mhm,
live support. So what is defining what you need up front, I think is the key message here so that you do have that leverage in a contract,
mhm,
right? You have no way to hold the vendor accountable until you do some of this pre-work on the front end. Identifying what you need, identifying what's best for your overall organization as a whole, right? Not just finance, not just HR, not just
mhm,
IT, but what does the city of, or the county of, or the transit authority of need
mhm,
from an ERP, right? And so I don't know. It's baffling to me to think about organizations who just go out and procure software and what kind of battles they're facing. And there's
mhm,
nothing against software vendors. That's good for them. That
mhm,
they have a sales process and it's a really good process.
mhm,
But at the same time, like, what are you getting out of it? From a public sector standpoint, and you mentioned it earlier, Billy, that we're using tax dollars to procure these things, to procure our services, to procure, software and what have you. And you want to make sure that you're doing right by your
mhm,
constituents. And you want to be able to prove that, right? If
mhm,
anybody has anything to say about it. So Sorry, I'm going down a rabbit hole. I'm very passionate
You're
about our
okay.
client. Um,
Yeah.
what else, Billy? I mean, is there any other hurdles that you had to overcome other than the ones you've mentioned already?
So I would just say clear expectations on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
You have to define those, making sure your terminology, you're both speaking the same language. Yes, we may say the same words, but our understanding of them may not be there. So making sure that's there and you're not just signing something thinking it means one thing and then you turn, oh, well, you meant that this way. So really getting clarification on what you sign before you sign it and knowing that once you sign, you no longer have negotiating power. So making sure you're 100% clear on everything. Um, and that's where we come in and we help with that process. So and give the confidence to make those decisions and to pause if you need to pause. There's nothing wrong with pausing and getting clarification.
That's right. That's right. We call that a mindful pause. In this,
Hmm.
there's nothing wrong with that, and don't let any vendor push you into something that you're not ready to do. Who should be at the table during contract negotiation?
So I would say your procurement,
Mm-hmm.
the department, the lead for the department it's impacting, the project sponsor, um, us, and legal for the vendor and the vendors. So you have everyone there. It's a big group. Do you have to get everyone in the same room physically? No, that's the beauty of technology. Now you can have everyone in the room virtually. And there's a great, mute button. You can mute, have side conversations, discuss it out, work it out, come back. And answer and move forward or say, hey, you know what, we need to table this, we're not comfortable with this, we need to come back and see what we're comfortable with, come to a conclusion, or can you get more clarification from your side on this and what does this mean, and having that conversation. But it's a large group that's at the table. It's not one or two people making this decision. It's a group effort.
Yeah, absolutely.